The dying light Captain Zorin of the Nexari stood motionless at the observation deck of the Valara Prime space station, watching the twin suns of his home system paint the sky in brilliant shades of amber and crimson. The sight that had brought him peace for over 30 years now felt like a farewell. His elongated fingers, delicate like those of all Nexari, trembled against the transparent aluminum viewing panel as he processed the impossible news that had just reached him. The Nexari were a species that had evolved beyond the need for violence. Their society had flourished for millennia through art, science, and philosophy. They had no weapons, no military, and no concept of war beyond ancient historical texts from other worlds. Their planet, Valara Prime, was a paradise of floating cities connected by graceful bridges that sparkled like jewels against the azure sky. Gardens hung in mid-air, defying gravity through their mastery of anti-grav technology, and crystalline spires reached toward the heavens like prayers made. Manifest behind Zorin, the soft chimes of the communication console broke the silence. His aide, a young Nexari named Lyra, approached with the hesitant steps of someone bearing terrible news. Her violet eyes, normally bright with curiosity, now reflected only fear. "Captain," she whispered, her melodic voice barely audible above the gentle hum of the station's systems. "Long-range sensors have confirmed it. The Vakthar invasion fleet has entered our outer system. They will reach Valara Prime in exactly 47 hours and 23 minutes. Zorin closed his eyes and felt the weight of 12 billion lives settling on his shoulders. The Vakthor Empire was a plague upon the galaxy, a species that had abandoned all pretense of civilization in favor of conquest and destruction. They moved from system to system like a swarm of metallic locusts, consuming everything in their path. Entire civilizations had been reduced to ash and memory in their wake. "How many ships?" Zorin asked, though he dreaded the answer. Lyra consulted her data tablet, her hands shaking slightly. 374 vessels, Captain, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, assault carriers, and support craft. Our analysts estimate they carry approximately 15 million Vakthar warriors. The numbers hit Zorin like a physical blow. The Nexari had exactly 12 security vessels in their entire fleet, and those were designed for rescue operations and asteroid mining, not warfare. They had no shields designed to withstand military-grade weapons, no armor that could deflect plasma cannons, and no weapons capable of penetrating Vakthor battle armor. Zorin turned from the window and walked to the central command chair. Around him, the bridge crew worked in stunned silence, their usual chatter replaced by the soft sounds of fingers dancing across control panels and the occasional suppressed sob. These were scholars and scientists, artists and philosophers, not warriors. They had devoted their lives to understanding the universe, not destroying it. "Open a channel to the Planetary Council," Zorin commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades making difficult decisions. Within moments, the holographic forms of the 12 council members materialized before him, their faces reflecting the same horror he felt in his heart. Councillor Vernum, the eldest among them, at nearly 200 years old, spoke first. "Captain Zorin, we have received the sensor reports. Is there any possibility of error?" "None, Councillor. The signatures match Vakthar vessels exactly. They have sent us a message as well." Zorin activated the recording, and the bridge fell, silent as the harsh, guttural voice of a Vakthor war commander filled the air. "Creatures of Valara Prime," the alien voice snarled, each word dripping with contempt. "I am War Commander Facts of the Vakthor Third Conquest Fleet. Your world has been marked for assimilation. In 48 hours, we will begin orbital bombardment of your cities. Your adults will serve in our labor camps until death. Your younglings will be trained as warriors for our empire. Resistance is futile. Surrender is inevitable. This is the way of the Vakthor. The message ended, leaving only the sound of 12 civilized beings trying to comprehend absolute evil. Councillor Jara, the youngest member of the council, broke the silence with a voice barely above a whisper. Surely the Galactic Federation will intervene. They have laws against this kind of unprovoked aggression. Zorin shook his head sadly. The Federation has been trying to stop the Vakthor for over a century. Every time they send a fleet, the Vakthor simply retreat to another part of the galaxy and continue their conquests elsewhere. The Federation cannot be everywhere at once, and the Vakthor know this. What about our neighbors? Asked Councillor Myra. The Zentari Republic owes us for the medical supplies we provided during their plague outbreak. Surely they will help. Again, Zorin had to deliver crushing news. I have already contacted every allied species within 50 light-years. The Zentari expressed their sympathy, but reminded us that they lost half their fleet in their last encounter with the Vakta, the crystalline. Collective is too far away to reach us in time. The Ethereal Union refuses to engage in violence under any circumstances. The council members looked at each other with growing desperation. These were beings who had spent their entire lives solving problems through logic, negotiation, and scientific inquiry. The concept of a problem that could not be reasoned with was foreign to their very nature. There must be something we can do, Councillor Verne said, his ancient voice carrying the wisdom of ages. Somewhere in this vast galaxy, there must be someone willing to stand against this evil. Zorin felt a spark of an idea forming in his mind. It was desperate, perhaps even foolish, but it was the only option they had left. We send a message to everyone, every species, every world, every station in the galaxy. We transmit on all frequencies, in all languages. We tell them what is happening here and ask for help. But Captain Lyra interjected. The energy requirements for a galaxy-wide transmission would drain our entire power grid. We would be left completely defenseless. We are already defenseless, Zorin replied grimly. At least this way, we might find someone willing to help us. Or perhaps our message will serve as a warning to others about what the Vakthor are planning. The council voted unanimously to approve the transmission. For the next 6 hours, every Nexari scientist, linguist, and communications expert worked tirelessly to craft a message that would reach across the void of space to touch the hearts of strangers. They encoded it in over 3,000 languages, included detailed star charts showing the Vakthor fleet's approach, and transmitted it with enough power to reach the furthest edges of known space. Meanwhile, in a solar system so far away that most galactic maps didn't even include it, Lieutenant Sarah Chen was having a quiet night shift at the Mars Defense Monitoring Station. The red planet hung like a rusty jewel against the star-filled darkness, its 2 small moons casting strange shadows across the surface installations below. Sarah had drawn the midnight watch again, which usually meant 8 hours of monitoring, routine deep space traffic, and updating navigation databases. She was reviewing shipping manifests from the Jupiter colonies when every screen in the communications center suddenly lit up with incoming signals. The computer systems, designed to handle thousands of simultaneous transmissions, began displaying priority alerts in languages Sarah had never seen before. What the hell, she muttered, setting down her coffee and moving to the main console. Her fingers flew across the control panels as she tried to isolate the source of the transmissions. Whatever was sending these signals was using incredible amounts of power, more energy than most entire solar systems generated in a year. The universal translator began working through the various languages, and slowly a pattern emerged. The same message, repeated in thousands of different forms, all carrying the same desperate plea for help. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the translation appearing on her screen. "This is Captain Zoran of the Nexary Space Defense Force, transmitting. From Valara Prime in the Kepler 442 system. We are a peaceful civilization facing imminent extinction. The Vakthor Empire has sent a massive invasion fleet to our world. We have less than 48 hours before they begin orbital bombardment of our cities. 12 billion innocent lives hang in the balance." Sarah leaned forward, her heart racing as she continued reading. "We have no weapons, no military, and no way to defend ourselves. We are sending this message to every corner of the galaxy in the hope that someone, somewhere, has the power and the courage to help us. We are not asking you to die for us. We are simply asking for the chance to live." The message continued with technical details about the Vakthor fleet, their weapons, capabilities, and their estimated time of arrival. Sarah had never heard of either the Nexari or the Vakthor, but something about the message's simple honesty moved her deeply. She had served in the Human Defense Force for 8 years, and she had never encountered anything like this. Without hesitation, she activated the emergency protocols and sent an immediate alert to Admiral Marcus Steele at Lunar Command. Within minutes, her secure communication panel lit up with an incoming call from the Admiral himself. Asterisk. The impossible response. Admiral Marcus Steele had seen many things during his 40-year career in the Human Defense Force, but nothing had prepared him for the report that Lieutenant Chen had just transmitted to Lunar Command. He stood in his private office aboard the massive space station that orbited Earth's moon, reading the translated message for the third time while his senior staff waited for his response. Steele was a large man, standing nearly 2 meters tall, with graying hair and scars on his hands from his years as a combat engineer. His pale blue eyes had seen the worst that humanity could do to itself during the resource wars of the late 22nd century, and they had also seen the best that humanity could achieve when faced with impossible odds. Now, those same eyes were focused on a decision that could change the course of galactic history. "Sir," said Colonel Martinez, his chief of staff, "I've run the numbers 3 times. The Kepler 442 system is over 800 light-years from Earth. Even using our fastest ships with experimental hyperspace drives, we couldn't reach them in less than 6 months." Steele nodded without looking up from the message. "What about the Phantom Blade?" The room fell silent. Everyone present knew about the Phantom Blade, but it was classified at the highest levels of government. The ship represented 20 years of humanity's most advanced research into stealth technology, artificial intelligence, and weapons systems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Sir," Martinez continued carefully, "the Phantom Blade is still in the experimental phase. We've never tested it beyond our own solar system. The hyperspace fold technology is theoretical at best." "Theoretical, but functional," Steele replied, finally looking up from the message. "The ship completed its shakedown cruise last month. Captain Rodriguez reported that all systems were operating at 112% of design specifications." Captain Elena Rodriguez was humanity's most decorated combat pilot, a woman who had earned her reputation during the conflicts with the Titan separatists. She had volunteered to command the Phantom Blade specifically because no one else was willing to risk their career on such an experimental vessel. Rodriguez was fearless, brilliant, and absolutely loyal to the principles that humanity had fought so hard to establish. "Sir," interjected Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief scientist, "even if the Phantom Blade could reach the Nexari system in time, it's only one ship. The intelligence reports indicate that the Vakthor fleet consists of nearly 400 vessels. That's mathematically impossible odds." Steele walked to the massive window that dominated one wall of his office. Far below, the blue and white marble of Earth turned slowly in its ancient dance around the sun. Somewhere on that world, in classrooms and laboratories, children were learning about the universe and dreaming of the stars. In hospitals, doctors were saving lives. In art studios, painters and sculptors were creating beauty that would outlast their mortal forms. "Dr. Kim," Steele said quietly, "has anyone ever told you the story of the Battle of Thermopylae?" The scientist shook her head, confused by the apparent change of subject. 2,500 years ago, 300 Spartan warriors held off an army of over 100,000 Persian soldiers for 3 days. They knew they were going to die, but they fought anyway because they were protecting something more important than their own lives. Steele turned back to face his staff. "The Nexari are facing extinction. 12 billion innocent people are about to be murdered or enslaved by a species that represents everything humanity has sworn to oppose. They have no weapons, no defenses, and no hope except for a desperate message sent to strangers across the galaxy." "Sir," Colonel Martinez said carefully, "I understand the moral implications, but we have to consider the political ramifications. Humanity has managed to avoid galactic conflicts for over 50 years by maintaining our neutrality. If we intervene in this situation, we could find ourselves at war with the entire Vakthor Empire." Steele smiled grimly. "Colonel, do you know what the Vakthor calls species like the Nexari?" Martinez shook his head. "Prey," Steele replied. "They divide the galaxy into 2 categories, predators and prey. The Nexari are prey because they're peaceful and defenseless. Most of the other galactic civilizations are prey because they've forgotten how to fight for something greater than their own survival." The Admiral walked to his desk and activated the secure communication system. "But humanity has never forgotten what it means to be a predator. We've just been very careful about choosing our targets." Within minutes, the face of Captain Ali Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the Phantom Blade, docked at the Titan shipyards, overseeing final preparations for what everyone had assumed would be another routine patrol mission. "Admiral," Rodriguez said, her voice carrying the crisp efficiency of a career military officer, "I understand we have a situation. Captain, I'm transmitting a message that was received 3 hours ago. Read it carefully, then tell me what you think." Rodriguez's dark eyes moved across her screens as she absorbed the information. Steele watched her expression change from curiosity to concern to something that looked very much like controlled anger. When she finished reading, she looked directly into the camera. "Sir, 12 billion people are about to die unless someone does something about it. The Kepler 442 system is 800 light-years away, Captain. The Vakthor fleet will begin their attack in less than 44 hours. Even if the experimental hyperspace fold technology works perfectly, you would be facing impossible odds." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, considering the implications. "Sir, what do we know about Vakthor combat tactics?" Dr. Kim consulted her. "Files. They rely on overwhelming numerical superiority and brute force. Their ships are heavily armored, but not particularly maneuverable. They typically begin with orbital bombardment to break enemy morale, then send in ground forces to secure key installations. Psychological warfare? Rodriguez asked. Extensive, Dr. Kim replied. They broadcast recordings of their previous conquests to terrify their enemies. They make examples of captured leaders to break resistance. They're very effective at using fear as a weapon. Rodriguez smiled and still recognized the expression. It was the same look she had worn just before she single-handedly disabled 3 Titan battlecruisers during the Outer Rim campaign. "Admiral," she said, "I have a question. When was the last time the Vakthor faced an enemy that hunted them?" Back, Steele raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, Captain?" "The Vakthor are used to fighting prey species, civilizations that try to defend themselves from attack. But what if they encountered a predator species? What if they found themselves being hunted by something that viewed them as prey?" The implications of her question sent a chill through the room. Humanity had spent centuries learning how to wage war against other humans, arguably the most dangerous and unpredictable species in known space. They had developed tactics based on speed, stealth, and psychological manipulation. They had learned to turn their enemies' strengths against them and to strike at the moments and places where they were least expected. "Captain," Steele said slowly, "are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "Sir, the Phantom Blade was designed to be invisible, untraceable, and absolutely lethal. We've been testing it against human defenses, which are the most sophisticated in the galaxy. The Vakth have never faced anything like it." Rodriguez paused, looking directly into the camera with the intensity that had made her a legend among human military forces. "Give me 12 hours, Admiral. 12 hours to show the Vakthor what it feels like to be prey." Steele looked around the room at his staff. Colonel Martinez was shaking his head in disbelief. Dr. Kim was running calculations on her tablet, her face growing paler by the second. But there was something else in their expressions, a spark of the same determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hours. "Captain Rodriguez," Steele said formally, "you are hereby authorized to proceed to the Kepler 442 system using all necessary means. Your mission is to prevent the destruction of the Nexari civilization by any means you deem appropriate. You have complete tactical authority and the full support of the Human Defense Force." Rodriguez saluted crisply. "Understood, Admiral. We'll launch within the hour." As the communication ended, Steele turned back to the window overlooking Earth. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a peaceful civilization was counting down its final hours. But now, racing through the void at speeds that defied conventional physics, humanity's deadliest weapon was beginning its hunt. Dr. Kim looked up from her calculations, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "Sir, if Captain Rodriguez succeeds, we'll have announced humanity's presence to the entire galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Nothing will ever be the same." Steele nodded grimly. "Doctor, sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to remind everyone why war is so terrible. The Vakthor have been terrorizing the galaxy for too long. It's time they learned what it feels like to be afraid."